So I'm called Sarah Skyrme, live in Lancashire. I work at a university. I'm a sociologist basically, and I focus on healthcare. And so I interview nurses and doctors, that sort of thing, patients. Then, ironically, I also have a health condition, and I got to know about you guys because I've been working with an animator, and we created this animation about my healthcare experience, so that's how I heard about you.
Oh, fantastic. So, obviously, for those that don't know, Sarah is making reference to the fact that, we hosted the Manchester Health Film Festival. And if you want to kind of elaborate a little bit about that, what's it about for our new listeners?
Yes, the Manchester Health Film Festival is the only Manchester-based film festival to promote health discourse through cinema. So we screen plenty of health-related films, mental health, physical health, covered so many different health conditions at the last Manchester Health Film Festival, from cancer to dementia to hepatitis C, which is what's brought us here today. And that's kind of how us three sort of became friends and colleagues and such. As Kondwani said, very, very excited to have you here and sort of learn a little bit more because we really loved it. We were very excited to see animation.
So my healthcare experience is that I started to get very ill, but didn't know what was the matter with me. So originally, back quite a few years ago now, they diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis, which is a very painful joint condition, can make you feel very unwell. But I knew that there was something else. And I'd said to a friend, it's something in my blood. I just knew it, because you know these things, you know your body. I was exhausted. I had the joint pain, which they'd attributed to rheumatoid. But there were these other symptoms that I'd had for years, sort of my eyes had gone quite yellow, my skin had gone a bit yellow, but people just said, oh, it's just, suntan or whatever. Stomach pains, that all sorts. Eventually, by chance, I realised I might have Hep C, went to the doctor, and I knew. And the trouble is, it's like a 2-week wait for your blood test results. And so I had to try and act normal, and pretend, things were okay. And went to the doctor the day that I got diagnosed, and I just fell apart. And the doctor was awesome. She just leant forward and she said, look, you've been dealt a shit sandwich, but we're going to work through this together. And it really helped. I didn't want anyone to put a happy, this is fine. It was a disaster. It felt like calamity because I'd read up about it by then. And the trouble is, it's a very stigmatized condition because you can only catch it through blood-to-blood contact, so sharing a needle. So that's heroin users. Maybe dirty tattooing equipment. Maybe you've had healthcare abroad and they didn't clean the instruments, or a contaminated blood transfusion. They tend not to screen for it automatically. If you go with tummy ache and brain fog or whatever. So what they said to me was I'd go for these appointments and they'd say, oh, it's probably depression.
Wow.
And you get fobbed off.
Yeah.
And I just wish one GP, a locum, did say, there's something not right here. I would like to admit you to hospital. And I was too afraid and I didn't go, and that would have saved me a few years of struggling. Anyway, I got diagnosed, but the problem was that at that point, the only treatment was called interferon.
What's that about?
Interferon basically makes your immune system really kick up. The idea being that can then hopefully kill the virus. But the trouble is, because I had this rheumatoid arthritis and I was very anemic, and had low white blood count, the interferon could cause kidney failure. So basically, the one possible cure, which is very arduous, was not safe. So basically, I just got sicker and sicker over the years, and there was nothing they could do. And you just feel dreadful. You really do. It's just a horrid. You get very itchy skin because your liver isn't working. You tend not to tell people because they might think, oh, well, she must have been a heroin user. And you go to appointments, and it can be a bit demeaning. I felt some of the nurses, because it's very prevalent in the prison population. Okay. And I just got the feeling that this specialist nurse spoke in a very certain way, patronising and talking at you rather than listening. And so it was hard till I moved to another hospital where my nurse was an angel, and he couldn't help me as such, but the fact that he knew what I was going through and that he listened, I was seen. For a half hour, I was seen.
How long did it take to that point, roughly, to when you had that encounter?
That was a few years.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was living in another part of the country. Then I moved to Lancashire and found this. Well, it was just this. I had the good fortune that I happened to have this brilliant nurse, and he, I just felt like he supported me, even though he couldn't do anything for me. There's nothing that could be. I mean, my GP was good. He, what they did do was kept giving me steroid injections, iron transfusions for the anemia. So at least but you had to advocate for yourself a lot. Yeah. So it was difficult, and I was super careful about who I told. And I was doing my PhD as well at the time, so it was tough going.
The secret must have been a major burden.
It's very uncomfortable.
Would you, like nowadays, I suppose, because sort of stigma has changed and such, but then also you as a person now, do you think now you'd be more open about it if you was going through it now in modern day, or do you think it'd still be a similar situation?
I guess, because the very good news is that in, certainly 2017, 2018, there's a cure has come out of clinical trials. And 3 to 6 month treatment and you are cured. It's a game changer and it's a life changer. So it's a different narrative now. You would think, oh, okay, that's why I've been feeling ill. I've got Hep C, the doctor's just told me. And then in his next breath, the doctor would say, we've got antivirals and they're free. But back when I was very ill, my consultant did sort of keep dropping these hints, and I realised because he can't say join a buyer's club, but he was saying some of my patients have gone abroad and bought the cure, because by 2016 the cure was available, but it was very expensive. So the NHS was only giving it to people that were very, very ill. My consultant did advocate for me to have it, but I didn't get it. And eventually, the subtlety of his hints got through to me. And I literally opened my laptop, Google, and typed into Google, buy Hep C drugs. Why I didn't do that a year before, I think it's just we are not used to going out and buying our cures.
I'd be scared to do that.
I was.
When you touched upon it in the film, I thought that's got to be really...
So scary.
Really scary.
And incredibly, this Dr James Freeman, who's Australian, frustrated by people not being able to get this cure through their doctor, set up this buyers club. So you import from India, where they're way cheaper. I mean, just a fraction of the cost. Mine cost £1,000. But if I bought them in the UK, that would have cost me about 50,000 easily.
Fraction of the cost.
Yeah, from
that's one way of
£1,000
putting
to
it,
50.
But I don't know
my
what that
goodness.
is. I don't know what that is as a percentage. The Buyers Club help you. My nurse was sanctioned to support me, even though it was new territory for him. The drugs came, and within 3 days, I knew they were working.
What is it that you noticed that was a standout?
Can't tell you. Cannot tell you. And my partner knew it too, but we can't put it into words. And so, so my viral load, was 1.4 million. So I believe that that's how many of the little blighters, little viruses there are per, I don't know, 10 mils of blood or something. My blood test at 1 week said there were 30. So I said to my nurse, do you mean like 30,000? He said, no, 30. Just 30 viruses. That's all they could count from 1.4 million. Within 2 weeks, and ever since, nothing. So it's considered a cure.
Wow, that's great.
I know. So it was kind of then recovering, then I think I've always had an autoimmune condition ever since I was a teenager. And that sort of, I had to get used to living with that. You know, I got rid of the Hep C, then had to see what was left that was causing. So I've got, it's called Sjogren's syndrome.
Sjogren's,
yeah. I know, no one knows how to say it.
I'll have to look it up later, yeah.
It's sometimes described as a bit like a mild lupus.
Okay.
So joint pain, muscle pain, fatigue, brain fog, very dry throat, very dry mouth, very dry eyes. So I'm living with that. I'm on steroids for that.
I'm curious to, like, you know, especially on the part of steroids. How do you cope taking steroids? Because I know the effects can be very impactful. And the reason I'm saying that is when I recall the time when I was going through the elimination method for my diagnosis back when, I was given steroid injection and I felt amazing. Like, but then I knew something wasn't right still. And I think because I knew something wasn't right, and because it doesn't think, I can't remember how long it's meant to last in your system. When that wore off, I was just like, right, so I'm not cured yet. So I'm kind of curious, like how, just very quickly, how do you cope with
I agree
your
with you
medications?
completely. Because I was having, when I had the Hep C, I was having steroid injections to keep me going. And I'd say 3 months. Mm-hmm. Then they tail off. And like you say, and that did help me do stuff. I was, you know, I finished my PhD. It was powered by steroids. Now I take tablets at a much lower dose. I've had COVID and got it made my Sjogren's worse. So I've actually 4 days ago started a higher dose of steroids. And it's just a balancing out the whole time. And for me, I get very fearful that the GP will take them away from me one day because I can't cope without them. But when you're on them, they do, they do affect you. If I miss a day, my stomach's terrible and you feel terrible. So they're a powerful drug and it's a balancing out the whole time.
You spoke about completing your PhD. At what point from there do you start to realise, filmmaking can be used as a tool to advocate for health? And when did you think, I'm going to tell my story? Because I've noticed, having heard you speak today and talking to you today, how much your story actually mirrors the film.
Well, I guess, so I am a researcher, so we tend to write everything up in very densely worded academic articles that are read by other academics and are behind paywalls anyway. I happened to bump into an animator in the public library where I live and got talking about my story because I'd only recently recovered from the Hep C, was job hunting at that time. I'd not been able to get benefits. So I was really financially absolutely on my knees, lost my house and all sorts. Was getting back on my feet. This animator said, I think we can make this into a story. I knew nothing about animation. So he had to educate me. I kept calling it cartoons. I had to get past that. I didn't think visually. And gradually he wrote a screenplay, and we then had to choose the look of the piece, like what do the characters look like. We needed one friend who becomes, in the story, she's Moona, and Moona is a representation of the 3 or 4 friends who helped me through, and were like, my support system, went through it with me. And the character herself is called Jane. And the story is set in a university. Jane does work in a university, and a bit like me, everything just falls apart. So, I had to learn about camera angles. Are we looking at the character? Are we looking over her shoulder? What does she look like? What does she dress like? How's she looking today? What does the doctor look like? It takes a lot of patience, and you have to get it right, because you can't ask the animator to, after he's, done a bit of animation, to edit it, because it's taken him hours to do each few seconds.
How long did it take, the whole process, do you think?
I think it was maybe 2 years.
Oh, wow.
It was a very long time.
2, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Might
That's
even
quite
been
a while.
3.
That's a while for a short one as well. Yeah.
Well, that's your longest one, though, isn't it? From all the ones I've seen, that's
Exactly, you're
like,
correct.
sort
You're
of
correct.
like 5 times the length of some of them. So
Yeah. And we did get a pocket of funding from Newcastle University through their Tilly Hale fund. Tilly Hale was a lady who had a different liver condition, which and it was in her memory, because Hep C affects the liver. It's a type of liver disease. So that pocket of funding, but I mean, Jeremy ended up probably getting less than £1 an hour.
passion project, though, isn't
Passion
it?
project.
You got to do
We had
it.
to do
It's
it.
got to be done.
Had to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I like about it, obviously, the story's inspired by your own experiences, really strong. Watching it, you get this feeling of like, no, this is like a lived experience.
Thank
It's
you.
grounded in reality.
Good.
But some things that I quite appreciate about it is obviously there's some quite experimental angles in the visuals, which I think are quite powerful.
Yeah.
And I also quite like the music as well. Very, very lovely. But one thing that sort of struck me upon the sort of my third watch of it, obviously watched it before MHEF, watched it at MHEF, watched it recently before this podcast, was how subtly you kind of touch upon like the financial and societal repercussions of the disease and such, and how it just affected everything. That was sort of some of the most emotional elements of it, the house, the change of house, and you sort of see all of these sort of financial things slowly falling away to the point where it's a very minimal space. How was it revisiting that? And was there a moment of, do we include this, do we not? Or did you just go, we're just putting it all in?
Yeah, I'd applied for PIP, Personal Independence Payment.
The one that they help for people with disabilities and illnesses, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And didn't get it. And the process, I won't say too much about it, but the process can be problematic. We don't just need empathy. We need material support. We need money and food and a roof over our heads to live. That's just a fact. And so all of that can fall away, and quite quickly. And because there were points where I still didn't know what was the matter with me, I was making some erratic decisions because I wasn't well. And I bitterly regret them now. financial choices and so forth. I was just in panic mode and couldn't think. And I should have done things differently, but I didn't. So it's almost like I've had to start again. So it's like I'm in the position that people much younger than me are in financially. Somebody said, illness takes you down to the floor of what you are. There's nowhere lower to go. You can't pretend. You can't pretend you've got your shit together, because you don't. It's survival. And particularly because I had an episode of severe breathlessness. I'd run for a train. I ran for a train, and I should have let the stupid thing go. I ran for it, got on, and I could not catch my breath. It was absolutely terrifying, and you realise how mortal you are. And once you've been there, there's no way back from that. You become a different you, a new you. And that's who I am now. I'm a different person, still living with the trauma. So in a way, doing the animation, and even now, as we are talking, this is me and this is us, making sense of it.
Wow.
Because like you're giving me this moment where I can talk, and talking is thinking, isn't it? You sort of don't know what you're going to say always till you're in this minute and this moment. So this is me making sense of it. Yeah.
In all this, how did you find strength, just very quickly before we move on to more on the filmmaking aspect? How did you find strength, and what was your outlet?
How did I find strength? Don't know.
I found in the film specifically, there's a lot of focus on people, as you said, with the character of Muna. Now you've said that's 3 people rolled into one. That makes so much sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
I noticed there's such a heavy emphasis on having the right people, not just professionally, but as friends, and having colleagues who will check up on you relentlessly, even when you're slamming the door in the face and telling them to go away. Yeah. Is that an element of finding strength for you? Is it people around you?
I think it is. You just, and again, it sounds a bit trite, but you do need to be seen. You need people just to, that if they just say, I know you're tired. I know your heart's sick today. It could be very irritating when people suggested cures. I know people are trying to be helpful, but it can make you feel, I'm not trying hard enough. Do you want me to try that? You don't realise how ill I am. So just having friends who are just there, who don't expect anything from you, and who know your story I think that's very important. And I suppose you have to avoid bitterness. I think you do. Because bitterness stops you from trying, I think. I'm just saying this as I'm thinking it. If you're bitter, it's what's the point? And I suppose I just kept trying. I just kept trying and just kept going. I was focusing on getting the cure for a long time. And that is a source of hope. Can you imagine if this story was 20 years ago?
Oh.
I probably wouldn't be here because, I was getting very sick. And I wouldn't have got that cure, which came out, in about 2015, although I had to buy it. And thanks to Dr. James Freeman, who founded that Buyers Club. There's no vaccine yet for Hep C. That's something they're working on. It mutates so much. I think it's very hard to develop a vaccine, but there is a cure. So I'm super grateful. And I guess that's been a very significant source of hope, and then moving beyond that for me.
How did that transcend into the health awareness and specific, themes that you touched on in Spate, especially with your academic background and the understanding of science?
When I was still ill, I had, from what I'd heard, I had a great faith that the cure, when it came, would work. And fortunately, I was right. I was well informed. I think as a researcher, sometimes that worked against me as we were developing the animation, because I probably over-explained stuff. For academic writing, you have to underplay emotion very much. Even though I'm very much a sociologist and I'm totally committed to social justice, to get a paper submitted to a journal, it has to be quite dispassionate. The animation was almost the opposite of that, although I must say that we were very careful not to overdo the emotion. And I must just say thanks to Wes Allard, who wrote the beautiful music for it, that really helped us tell the story.
Definitely a highlight for me, the score,
Thank
the
you.
original music.
great.
I really like it.
Thank you.
What about the voice acting?
Oh, that was so
How did that come
terrifying.
about?
I was so nervous. It was partly because was some of it during COVID? Can't remember. And we were on such a shoestring of a budget. So it was
As most
me.
things.
Yeah, yeah. So it came down to me doing, because I do Moona's voice as well.
I noticed
And
that
we
in the credits.
modulate
I didn't
it.
notice when I was watching,
Right.
but in the credits I noticed that. That's interesting.
Tried to change the accent a bit. I think I tried to make Moona a bit more of a not such a northern accent as mine, so she'd say glasses rather than glasses and such. But yeah, it was just needs must. But I was so nervous the first time I did it. It's and I don't know how people narrate long things. I've fluffed it so many times.
It's in chunks, but it's always impressive when you see other people better than yourself do it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's always in chunks. It's like
Yeah.
what I'm trying to play around with the current podcast. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
One, I don't know if this would have been your decision or somebody else's during the process, but one thing, this is silly. One thing I noticed in Spate, so when Jane's looking out the window,
Yeah.
waiting for the
White
delivery, I
van.
think,
Yeah.
on the TV, it's a Lego animation.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It's Jeremy's.
It's just
the
like
animator.
Right.
It's Jeremy Richard, the animator. He, I think it was one of the very early things he ever did was they're called brick films, Lego films. Their whole genre. He's self-referencing himself, put it on the telly.
Yeah, I thought it'd be something like that. I had a feeling because I felt, well, I've noticed with a lot of filmmakers that I've sort of associated with, everybody started with stop motion. And I don't know whether it's a case of, obviously, when you're so young, so say 8 or 9, I don't know whether it's a case of your ideas are so grand, you couldn't possibly think of doing a film based on something you've experienced. You don't want to write about what you know, even though you should be. But at that point, you're thinking, well, I want aliens and I want fights and I want soldiers. So it's just like, oh, just use the toys.
Yeah.
It's cheap, it's easy, as long as you have a camera. I think it's such a wonderful...
It's very
a lot of
accessible.
people come from stop motion, even if it wasn't very good. Like mine, I did loads, they weren't very good, but it's somewhere to start. So I had a feeling that might have been from the archives as like a little reference.
You're absolutely right, yeah. And even the fact that she's waiting for the van to come with the drugs, that was real. I was just at the window waiting for that white van to come, and I photographed the antivirals when they came. And I was so scared to take them because with having an autoimmune condition, we didn't know how they'd work. And it just felt so scary. I still remember it. So I took them and went for a walk and never had a moment's problem with them. So 3 months and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling in the film, particularly from the character. Obviously, because this sort of follows the moment on the bridge, I kind of really got the sense of from Jane it was there's nothing to lose at that point. It's kind of like the drugs might, harm me, but really, as you said earlier, it's this feeling of rock bottom.
Absolutely.
And then it's sort of like the only option. But I find the courage to actually, even in that situation, to actually take the drugs is unbelievable.
I did, yeah.
It must have been daunting, yeah.
It was, without the NHS's. I mean, my nurse was supporting me, but yeah, he hadn't prescribed them, exactly. But yeah, I think it shows how when you're desperate, you make decisions, and it certainly focuses your mind.
Certainly does, because even how you communicated that across watching it, I'm sure it speaks to a lot of people because they can relate to those moments.
Yeah.
And giving it the context of how scary it can be to try something like, that wasn't even on the prescription, because we take these things for granted. Mm-hmm. It's that safety in the back of the mind, but then you're like, okay, this should be safe, but then there's no that filter that you are so accustomed to.
No. It was like, what if something goes wrong and I have to go to A&E and they won't
How
know?
do you explain it?
Yeah. Sort of admit, yeah.
But, that didn't happen. And they're so tolerable. And if anybody, is listening and thinking of taking the treatment, you really shouldn't be worried, because the deep discomfort of having Hep C is so miserable. Mm-hmm. You have to treat it.
Yeah, I will definitely... I think I can say for sure I knew nothing about it before.
No, I didn't.
I'd seen your films. Having watched a handful of them, you've educated me, for sure, 100%. And I would imagine through the screenings that you've probably done numerous, you've educated a lot of people.
Hope so, yeah.
Are there any reactions from audiences that have stayed with you or stuck out? Some moments where you really thought, we've done something amazing here?
It's kind of been it's been quite a slow process of getting it out there. I wouldn't say we're the best publicists. But something really exciting happened the other day. I'd happened to read this email and heard about this. It's called the Blood Project, based out of a university in America. And I contacted the woman running it, Kristen, and they're sort of mixing clinical teaching about any blood-related condition with humanities research. And so she's sharing all three that you just named on the on their site, along with some teaching materials so that clinicians can have a think about, okay, so I know about the patient medically, but I can also think about them socially and emotionally through watching these animations. So it's been a slow burn.
That's the word. At the moment, where have you ended up? Have you ended up releasing and hosting, or any screenings around In Spate, following after the festival?
So we screened it at your festival. We screened a couple of the other ones that you mentioned have been screened elsewhere. They're available on my website. I've shared them with a lot of academics, shared them with somebody who teaches nurses, who said that they were really useful teaching tools.
Okay.
To help nurses understand, again, about not just treating the patient's physical health, but understanding, the patient may be feeling very stigmatized, very ashamed or embarrassed, or, just I want medical staff to understand that even if they can't give their patient a cure, the contact between the patient and the clinician matters. Just making them feel comfortable and seen is really important.
Yeah, it's all about empathy, isn't it, in these situations?
I think so.
I think sometimes, probably for no fault of their own, probably a lot of external stress leads to it, but I think sometimes GPs and nurses and stuff. They go through so many people.
I know.
Consistently, they're so busy and so
Yeah.
stressed and overworked and
Yeah.
all of these issues which we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
That they probably do lose sight. I mean, it's the same with teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You go through so many years, you probably lose that
Yeah.
a little bit. But
Yeah.
every single person that you interact with in any line of work is a person.
Yeah.
As silly and
Yeah.
simple as it sounds. And I think, as you've said, films are such a good tool to get people to really sympathise
Yeah.
with the people they see every day and think. It's just that moment, isn't it? Of okay. This person could be going through so much more. Like they could be holding back so much financial issues, health issues, emotional issues,
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the person to just be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
No.
No. And I think your films do a really good job
Yeah.
of showing there are people behind these,
Yes.
behind the patients.
Yeah, we have tried to portray we've tried to draw on people's imagination, and that's what animation and the arts can do. It's just a different way of thinking, and our subconscious life is it's vast, and so maybe when you're watching it, your subconscious is making connections and sparking ideas that you can't always put into words. So I think that's the power of visual methods, films, and of the Health Film Festival. That it's a different way of portraying. This is me. This is what it's like being me, or this is this woman who's gone through a problem. This is what it's like for her in daily life, and the clinician can't see that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, obviously clinicians are focused on saving lives and trying to help people, stay as well as possible. But for some conditions where you can't do a lot for them, there does need to be just a warmth.
That's well put. A warmth.
Warmth. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, that feels right. The right word.
Healing is an art as well as a task. The art, being a clinician is an art, and
So do you feel a sense of, so from the moment, obviously, when you reflect on your journey, the diagnosis, and then you went through the portrayal, of your experiences in this art form, which you now picked up, basically, you're a filmmaker and animator, so kudos to you. Have you felt a sense of almost like an extension to the awareness raising, and also certain behaviors and sentiments around the people around you, from healthcare professionals, and even family members, let's say? Do they kind of have more understanding of your experiences or what it's been like on your journey when it comes to that?
I think so. I think friends who've watched it, and like my sister shared it with them. My sister studied drama, so she's shared it recently with some people who are, in the arts and whatnot. And I think they've been really warm reception of it. Somebody said, it was really, it had a sweetness. It wasn't overly dramatic. And I think the storytelling has been really quite well received. No one's criticised it yet. I'm probably just too polite.
That's a good thing, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I sort of made me think. I suppose this is two questions in one. So, looking back, in terms of all elements of the filmmaking process that went into In Spate, is there anything you would do differently now in hindsight? And in the same vein, what advice would you give to young filmmakers or young animators or writers, voice actors going forwards? Like, what can they do today to improve their work? Or what should they not do today to improve their work?
That's a good point. What should they not do?
I think definitely avoid over-dramatising. You can keep it subtle, for a stage production, you need the actor to carry their voice, carry their, the story, but this is very intimate and close up. And you don't need to do too much. I think you need to be genuine, and you have to be so patient and prepared to let go of hours of work if it's not working. You just have to let it go, and you have to start again. And each edit, it's editing, it's editing, and keep trying. Run it by people as well. And if they say, oh, is this about COVID? Somebody, maybe thinks, oh, is it about COVID? And no, it's a different virus. Just think, okay, so what am I not portraying clearly enough? You have to be prepared to just work and re-edit. And I think spend a lot of time, you have to spend a lot of time writing ideas down and refining them, because you don't always know what you want to say. And with animation in particular, as I said, there comes a point where it has to be locked. He then goes away and animates that, and that's it then. I think we did a pretty good job. I don't particularly cringe. There are maybe one or two moments. But I have to say I'm pretty happy. I'm just amazed that we did it, to be honest. That's my honest thing. Considering everything, just with very limited resources, just live in a terraced house. So it's, we don't have the luxury of a studio to work in. And so you have to be ingenious. And I think actually that's the thought. Don't let it hold you back. Don't think you've got to be Steven Spielberg and have a ranch and have, oh, if only I had all this, I'd do it. Have a go, do it on a shoestring. And if you can't do a full-blown film, is there some way that you could compromise? I know people don't like compromising, but find a way. And if you're genuine, and if it's coming from the heart, people recognize it. People know. Just people, it's just so obvious to us, isn't it?
If it's genuine, you can tell.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I think you make some really great points there. I mean, feedback is crucial. It's something kind of, when I was kind of younger, maybe not taking filmmaking as seriously as I am now in terms of profession, but definitely was taking it seriously in the moment, or I thought I was. Feedback was never welcome, not really. And then sort of since going to uni, I thought, who do I think I am? I'm not Steven Spielberg. It was, who do I think I am? Just somebody making films, right? And I want as many people to enjoy them as possible. So then that was when I thought, well, feedback is necessary. And recently done a short comedy, and the feedback on getting feedback on a comedy in particular, or in terms of on the same coin, like you taking your own health experiences and putting them in, asking for feedback, you really are putting yourself on the line. It's especially when you've written something and you think, oh, this is something that happened to me, I think this is really funny, and then you're screening it, people think, God, I hope they laugh, or I hope they have the reaction I want them to have. But it's so important, so important. So I agree, that's an amazing piece of advice. And you speak about sort of using what you have. Again, I think that makes some of the best. It forces you to be creative, and I think it's incredible. But what would your next project be if there were no restrictions? You have all the money in the world. Steven Spielberg is your personal assistant on this one. He's throwing all his money into this.
Or Christopher Nolan.
Oh yeah. I think. Well, I'm very interested in severe disability. My PhD was around interviewing boys who have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. the most severe muscular dystrophy. And I'm very interested in looking at disability, severe, and looking at disablest attitudes. And a young man who's was in a meeting the other day that I attended. He said that often severe disability is portrayed as like it's something to be pitied, and none of us want pity. So we are thinking about that. Yeah, we're thinking about that next, and it's funding is instrumental. So if there was no funding problems, it would just be doing that absolute justice, because we need to change the way we think about illness.
Agreed.
And disability. They need to be normalised because we are all mortal, and it's so many of the conversations happen behind closed doors, and that creates stigma. There's somebody who wrote silence and invisibility go hand in hand with powerlessness, and so we need to speak up. We need to make things not silent. We need to stop things from being invisible. And the film festival, film, animation, talking about these things is part of changing that. If people are interested, they can look at pigeontower.uk for my work, for our animation work, or sarahskyrme.uk, but they'll have to check the spelling online for that.